Welcome back to our last session of interviews made to the authors of the book The Mind of the World Philosophy Day 2019, sponsored by the Malaysian branch of the World Philosophical Forum. Today with us is Dr. Stephen Roy, who is one of the authors of the book The Mind, and also he's the Vice President of the World Philosophical Forum. Doctor, thank you for being here with us and accept this invitation. And we are going to talk a little bit about your paper, which is called The Impact of Philosophy on Historical Research.
That's right.
Which is part of the book, right?
Indeed.
So how much the philosophy on historical research is used in universities nowadays?
Not so much indeed. No, because history and philosophy do not really interact so directly. History is more or less based on facts and on a sequence of events which are really defined by chronological orders and by references to human action impacting upon society, where philosophy takes a more abstract attitude without really being in need of any kind of sequences, chronological sequences and order and dates and things like that. But so that's why we don't have many courses run on the impact of philosophy and historical research. As a matter of fact, I think there's only a few worldwide. On the other hand, methodologically speaking, there is always a connection between history and philosophy, in the sense that philosophy takes always a very rationalistic attitude towards assessing its inferences, and history must do the same. Although the interaction between them is not established as a mainstream course in most universities, methodologically speaking, when we write an article on history or on philosophy, we follow the same course of ideas, or the same course of processing the whole thing.
Okay.
I don't know if you wanted to expand further on that, or you want to proceed with the next question.
No, it's okay. I have a question.
Certainly. Yes.
For example, you know that philosophy allows us to understand the universe and allows us to integrate science with a more complete way to see life, and we as a human being, how to use it in a ethic way and all of that. So in that context, how can help us use philosophy on this historical research?
Mm-hmm. Yes, well, first of all, yes, I need to clarify the fact that although philosophy is a more abstract way of examining things, it always relies heavily on the whys and the becauses of everything. Why we're here, why this phenomenon happens this way, when it doesn't happen this way, to what effect and to what extent. And like I said before, it's based always on an abstract approach without really having to make any resort to specific facts. Whereas history does need these facts in order to clarify its overall inferences. But methodologically, which is really what I said before, the historical and philosophical research do overlap. In which way? History does have to follow a rationalistic approach, either by analyzing events, either by starting from the overall phenomenon that it examines, and proceeding towards a breakdown process through to the minor parts of it, which is the so-called adductive kind of reasoning from the total to the part. We examine the factor and we just proceed to see what the consequences of each part consisting of it leads to another, how the whole thing leads to another. This is one way, which is also followed by philosophy. I mean, Socrates, for example, and Plato, in the dialogues of his Socrates, written focusing on Socrates' teaching, takes this idea and says that's what really happens when people act or react this way, or what they understand by saying this or that. But to understand it better, they have to break it down to its minor parts, indeed. The same happens with history. You take a war, you take a peace process, take a declaration, take a conference, and we say, what does it really consist of? It consists of that because, and the impact of that on the next stage, on the next inference of the declaration, or the next inference on the next stage of this war or whatever, also impacts on the next. And it's a chain reaction kind of a way, which leads from the total to the minor. Many historians have done that and have followed this course, and also the opposite one, from the minor to the major, which is the inductive kind of thinking. So this rationalistic approach shared equally by philosophy and history does reflect a relationship between these two ideas, the philosophical and research and the historical research. Also, the idea of all-inclusive evidence is very important, because both philosophy and history have to examine everything from all aspects involved. Not just, for example, history research from the linguistic aspect or the archaeological, but also from the epigraphic, from the religious point of view, anything at all. And also from both sides, not just the side of just one part involved, for example, a nation involved, but all from the historical source of all nations involved. In a war, for example, we should not ever settle on the sources of on the side of the victors. We really have to examine also the sources from the side of the victims, or the defeated, if you like, in order to arrive at a safe conclusion, which is always the target of the philosopher and the historian for that matter, because both the disciplines, philosophy and history, aim for the absolute truth. We cannot really always aspire to find the absolute truth, because that's something beyond human scope. But at least by examining all aspects of philosophy or history, we are taking a safer course towards that. And finally, we have never been to be prejudiced. For example, we should never take allow any religious or cultural or tribal or any kind of other bigotry take over or even interfere with our judgment. Because if it does, then the result we're going to arrive at will be totally, or at least partly, erroneous. So in these respects, the non-prejudiced, the all-inclusive evidence and the rationalistic evidence and approach for both disciplines are what really binds them together.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because the inductive method is more than scientist research than philosophical. Mm-hmm. So I think the more important is the inclusion of more point of interest in the research to understand better, I think, the society that you are investigating. To whom it is important, the historical researches? I mean, is it important for maybe science as a whole, philosophy as a whole, or your specific careers?
In all respects, I think historical research is important. As far as the experts are concerned, they have to take this delving as deeply as possible in historical matter, or at least any social matter, cultural matter, individualistically or socially or globally, in order to ensure the validity and the authority of it all. That's from a scholarly point of view. The common individual, the average individual, will also have to benefit from that, because it helps him. I mean, the historical said helps him ensure a more objective approach, rather than just what he gets by reading one or two papers or one or two books, or listen to the television or any kind of broadcast, which usually share a voice, rather a very individualistic approach, which is sometimes dictated by the political sources, political leadership, by the stakes and interests dictated by this or that party. So the individual also has to gain, the scholar has to gain, and if you like, also the specific sources of political power or religious authority also have to gain, because in this way again they stave away the danger of being subjected to certain particularly subjective point of view. So I would have thought that in all respects, historical research has to offer some kind of benefit to the people involved.
Now let's talk a little bit now about, you are the director of the Socratic School, of the World Philosophical Forum. Tell us a little bit about it, about the role this school have and the activities it's doing nowadays.
Yes. Well, the Socratic Philosophical School is a major medium whereby we ensure that the people studying and passing the process there qualify for the World Citizenship, title. The World Philosophical Forum, as perhaps you know, or perhaps you should know, is a forum that does give the floor and opportunities to all walks of life. not just to scholarly approaches and scholars themselves. It's open to all people from professional, artistic, cultural, individual kind of attitudes in life. And but we have to really make sure that the people who share, who become or aspire to become world citizens, do espouse the principles shared by the World Philosophical Forum. These principles are already uploaded in the main site, and the people who wish to become members, or rather not just members, but world citizens, they have either to study this and then pass a kind of test by a committee set up usually by most of the local branches to make sure that he should actually espouse these ideas, or register at the Socratic Philosophical School and undergo a way of assessment by being interviewed regarding these principles, so that we make sure that by the time they have digested these principles, they're ready and capable of becoming world citizens. So the Socratic Philosophical School is a way of making sure that the people who wish to become world citizens have really reached the level whereby we can qualify them to become so.
Right, so, but the people will only find the information, they will study at the website, or they are going to have a different sort of receiving this knowledge? I mean, maybe through Skype, or maybe through email, or maybe through another tool, technological tool, where they can find information?
Mostly, they have to focus on the feedback they will find uploaded in the site.
Okay.
Because we tend to separate the so-called scholastic philosophy, which more or less is taught all over the world in the sense of portraying facts from the rather the history of philosophy point of view rather than the practical. So to protect such individuals from the, or not protect, but to give them a wider approach, a broader approach to that, we advise them to stick to the principles uploaded at the World Philosophical website, because, like I said, it's the scholastic idea of philosophy that's been taught all over the world, rather than the practical, which focuses on the ability of these principles to offer practical solutions to everyday problems. So advise them to find all the list of the minimal knowledge, as we call it, for qualifying as world citizens, but we do not discourage them from using bibliographical stuff and feedback, always in parallel with these ideas, and always having in mind that just the idea of scholastic philosophy is never the target, is only a means to achieve the idea of the practical philosophy as it teaches in the Socratic Philosophical School.
Thank you, Professor. Well, I invite you all to read the paper of Dr. Stephen Roy, which is part of the book The Mind of the World Philosophy Day 2019, and keep watching the interviews we're doing to all the authors. Thank you, Doctor, for being here with us.
Thank you.
And thank you all for being here, and keep watching the channel.